when we think of the implementation of women's rights from a legal perspective, we've got to track back historically. What do the courts, the judiciary, the justice system, who occupies those positions? What do the people look like? And it's unfortunate that the people that occupy those positions in majority are still men. And there is an inherent bias that men have when it comes to the interpretation of women's issues. And I don't say that as an indictment on any male, but I think it's even the same for a woman. If I am considering an issue of the opposite gender, I don't have the necessary lived experience to necessarily appreciate the matter in the same way that a man can. So many people maybe won't understand the correlation of having a bench of judges that is diverse, especially when it comes to cases of gender based violence. Because a man hearing a gender based violence case may not necessarily hear the case in the same way that a woman judge would. I'm not necessarily suggesting that people are incapable of understanding different perspectives, but at the end of the day, I think we all have these inherent biases baked within us, right? The only way that we sort of change or unlearn our biased views is through lived experience, and then we recalibrate, and then we're able to calibrate to whatever circumstance we find ourselves in, and interpret them according to what we've experienced. But that also obviously means that we would have learned whatever lesson that we were supposed to from those experiences. So that's why there's a real need to have a diverse legal system. And I'd love to highlight Global 50/50 is doing such a good job at the moment, where they're sitting on um, the, 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 the legal industry and the and the need for having female participation at every level, because it's not just only within the judicial system that we would require female representation. It would be in the private sector as well, because the law is actually very broad. And even, for example, at a policy level, in your parliaments, your ministerial cabinets, and so on and so forth, women's representation is actually also important. I won't forget that at the G20 last year, the Minister of Health of South Africa actually mentioned that he, as a male Minister of Health, is sitting in policy discussions about breastfeeding, yet he's never breastfed. So he's extrapolating an experience that perhaps maybe he's heard from women he's been around, but he recognizes his limitation in that moment. And I mean, I give kudos to the men that are able to realize their limitations. And even though they may be close to a woman and understand the issue, they still understand that they may not necessarily be the best person to advise on the policy. But this is the unfortunate predicament that we find ourselves in as a society, where we've got people in positions of power, leadership, and authority that may not necessarily understand the embodied issue, right? We can all understand issues, I think, abstractly when they don't happen to us, when they don't affect us. And I think with women's issues, I must say, people only understand it once they have proximity to that woman. So many circumstances, right? Whenever I will say to somebody, if that was your mother or your sister, it always changes the dynamic, right? When it's somebody not close to them, they may have a different view. But when you bring it close to home, you can see that that sensitivity starts to arise in the responses. So I think we do need more of that. We do need more understanding. But the concept of gender and gender dynamics itself is extremely complicated. So, in my work at the UN Women, it's just been around acquiring more knowledge around women's rights advocacy,